Uh, well, I don't know. No, that's wrong. Darn it. That is wrong. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm getting bored of this story. I'm not changing my story. I'm excited, but man, I just keep saying the same thing over and over again. I can't wait. Let's say I can't wait for research. How about that? That'd be fun. It'd be fun to have a research report that tells you guys more than you need to hear. But when would a research report come out? I don't know. Yeah, I'm flummoxed. I don't know where to start today. I'm literally without an idea where to start. But here's our count. 15,499,889 shares. We're almost at 15 and a half million shares, which is incredible. It's incredible. I think the wait is going to be worth wait. I think the wait is going to be worth the squeeze. I believe the thing that's going to make this work better than you're expecting, because some of you have stopped expecting anything, it feels like. I think what's going to make this work is, it's two things. It's the same two things. But revenues, obviously. But I think revenues are going to come in like a fire hose. They're going to come in like water breaking through a dam. It's just going to be a lot of revenue. It's not going to be one of these like it's been. It's not going to be like it's been, where we got a series of these slow moving announcements and you're going, what does that mean? I think it's going to start becoming quite impressive on the revenues. Question is, how are they going to, when do they start announcing those revenues? That I don't know. And then the second thing is buying. You need buying from institutions and whales, and family offices, and it was my impression that those buyers are all lined up. But I did warn you all along that I thought the movement from, now, I still think this, but it hasn't happened yet. And it may be because the AIP deal isn't finished, or maybe TELUS has more to say, or maybe there's some other kick-starting revenue deal. But I still believe that once it kind of breaks to the upside, it'll be 80, 90 cents to $1 to $1.25 very rapidly. But I've said all along, and I still think this as well, that getting from $1 to $5 is going to be stair step, stutter step, 2 steps forward, half a step back, because a lot of funds and a lot of larger buyers can't buy under $1, under $2, under $3, whatever their rules are. So it's going to stutter step up. But once it crosses one of those numbers, I don't know what it is up in Canada, but maybe it's $5 Canadian, maybe it's $4, maybe it's $6. I think there's going to be an acceleration of buying in the stock, and it'll go rapidly upward. But I'll tell you, the 10 or 11, it's November, they met, Railtown met AIP Partners a year ago. They joined AI Networks either at the end of November or the beginning of December. So it was a year ago they joined. And they fell in love. They decided to get married, and they'd wait until their wedding night. But I don't know what happened. A brother came in and said, I object, or the father said, you can't marry that guy, or the priest said, you've got to convert to Catholicism before you can join, or the mother said, but she's not Jewish. You must marry. You cannot marry her. You can date her, but you must. I don't know what the hell. Why does it take longer than it took to build the Empire State Building to do a small acquisition? I don't know. But anyway, we've paid that price already. We've already gone through the extraordinary delays, and it ends today, at least according to their last press release, which I'll show you. So I back it up. I back up what I say. But then there's still another delay. Will the attorneys file that it closed today, or do they have to get back to get ready for the party tonight? I don't know. I really don't know. My guess is the attorneys are not going to be any more devoted to work today, this afternoon, than they've shown all along. So I think probably it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday next week. But then by then, we can finally start moving forward, test the theory that there's some buying whose actions have been limited because this transaction has to be completed first, and the information has to be fully distributed via the regulators. So we're very close. We're very close to that inflection point. Hopefully we see that buying come in. I don't know if it'll be the same day or the next day, because it's all about appearances. You know, if you're trying to make sure that some class action lawyer doesn't come after you later on in life, if Railtown buys AIP, the attorneys finally put the documents in, let's say Wednesday morning before the market opens. Well, if you're the first buyer and you go in for 5 million shares Wednesday morning, there's the potential that later on, whether it's true or not, you'll have to settle it. Hey, you must have known something. Why did you go so quickly? So my point is, it might be a day later, 2 days later, before that kind of buying comes in, except it'll be subject to, are the funds allowed to buy under $1 or under $2 in Canada? We'll find out. For the newer funds, what I mean by that, not new by existence, but new to the story, you know, they probably want to hear from their institutional broker or their overpaid banker or see some research. They might want to talk to Corey and Core and the rest. Yeah, you don't know. So it could be, it could be a momentum that starts slowly at first, but takes 2, 3, 4 weeks to build up. And I expressed yesterday that I'm a little concerned about the holiday season. But we'll find out. We'll find out. I, for the life of me, do not understand how a company or a group of decision makers could allow attorneys to take, well, I don't know if it's the attorneys. I really don't know. Maybe they got in fisticuffs in the boardroom and they had to go see counseling. How did that make you feel? Mm-hmm. And they had to take a 3-month course of couples therapy. Who knows why, but it really seems risky, frankly, to allow attorneys, regulators, whatever the process, whoever's in charge of the paperwork in the process. It seems really risky to let the process stall getting the story out to the marketplace while other companies are out there raising money and telling their story. You don't have to be the best product necessarily. You should be. You don't have to be the first mover product. You just got to be the first mover. I mean, if you're the most beautiful woman, you sit at the bar with your jacket on, your coat on over your long gown, but a more outgoing woman who's nowhere near as attractive gets out on the dance floor. She's the first mover. Who knows what happens? For me, I'd go up to the bar. I'm not much of a dancer. But anyway, it's all by way of saying the games are going to begin maybe as soon as tonight, but I wouldn't count on it. I don't think these attorneys are going to work late and file this with the Canadian authorities tonight. I'm not going to blame it on any characteristic or anything. I've been chastised, but I just don't think these attorneys operate with any urgency at all. It's more like, my life comes first or something. I have no idea what it is. So I think the good news will be that the acquisition by announcement should be completed today. Of course, it has all that wiggle, all that don't believe anything we just told you wording at the bottom of the announcement. But my guess is by Wednesday morning, that should give the attorneys plenty of time, go to the spa, check in on their family, a little me time, time to, just discover themselves, and then come in late on Monday and hopefully deal with other accounts first because they're more important. But I'd say by Wednesday morning, the filing's made. I don't think that'll cause any buying that day. I mean, some of us might buy, but I don't think we move the stock price. I think it'll be at least 24 hours after that, maybe 48 hours. So could buying come in on Friday? Sure. But it might be the following week. So that's fine. It's all a prelude to a thrill. And maybe next week, what'll happen by the deal closing, maybe the company can start talking to research analysts aggressively, and maybe there'll be research the following week too. So it's all good. We're getting there. We're finally getting there. But man, I'm tired and bored, and a little disappointed that it's taken this long. But it's exciting. It's almost over. It's almost over. Oh, I got to check the prices, which means sign in. I don't know why these stocks, I guess I was talking to somebody going over their stocks or something, but Railtown, of course, is down 2 cents while we wait. It's 0.4053 to 0.428. The volume is relatively small, 68,990 shares. Last trade, 150 shares at 41.5. Somebody just had to sell $60 worth of stock. It's all fraud, but it's also in some ways understandable because, guys, if I had to argue that the some attorneys, the regulators, and some market makers are working with shorts here, I'll tell you what, they dragged this out, or did they drug it out? They dragged this out for 10, 11, 12 months, and we're coming into holiday season. I think this all has worked very kindly for the shorts. It may be coincidence, but they've had plenty of time to move their trades off to Frankfurt, and it couldn't be a better setup for the fleecing of the North American markets. But I think today that gamemanship is over, and I think Railtown is not a company that's going to be destroyed by these reindeer games at all. So we'll see. Fingers up 4 cents at 130, bidding 129 to 132. The low on the day, 121. The high, 132. 152,000 shares. QNTM is down 27 cents at $7.42. Genius and its drum leader, the Genius, they're up 2 cents, a little over 2 cents at 86 cents after a massive reverse split. I don't know if it was this year or last year. And then Energy Vault, that is not my vault, is down 4.5 cents at $3.06. 3.065, 6.5 cents. The Dow is down, but NASDAQ is up. S&P is slightly up. And Railtown, 0.4041 to 0.421. And bless their hearts, I hope the attorneys have been able to work their schedule in a way that works out for them, and that they're not under a great undue stress, and they have their priorities straight, and as the saying used to go at one point in my life, I hope they have a life. 68,990 shares. Yeah, that's about it. It's about all we can talk about with that. It's 124. I'm really excited that it looks like for the Australian Open, Novak Djokovic is going to be the fourth seed, which means that he will be in the bottom on one, well, I guess it'll be Carlos and Fritz. No. Carlos and Zverev, I think. That's how it'll go. And then on the other side, it'll be Sinner and Djokovic. Darn it, Sinner's the toughest one for Djokovic to beat. But anyway, he won't have to meet him until the semifinals. He won't meet him in the quarters. So that's good. So yeah, that's true. Djokovic can beat Carlos. He has a hard time now beating Sinner. But if anybody can do it at age 39, Djokovic can. I'm ready to start talking to you guys about, I never thought this would take this long in terms of allowing me to talk about other things. Look, I think Railtown, I still stand by that everything's going to accelerate, but it still could be 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. And that's fine, but I didn't expect that I'd still have to be focused every single day. I made a commitment to only talk about that because I wanted it clear in your mind. That's my strategy. That's my recommendation. But I think I think the company, by letting either the attorneys, the process, or the regulators control their timing, I think the company, I mean, it may work out, and I think it will work out. But I think it's the one advantage with Railtown, they don't need to raise capital. The one I showed you the other day, Langchain, they're just they're inhaling capital. So, of course, it's not public, so it's not going to have all that shorting and all that nightmare. But Railtown doesn't need to, so that's in our favor. That's a good thing. Doesn't mean they won't raise a little bit, but they don't have to go out. But anyway, I told you earlier this year, probably in the second quarter, that I thought there was going to be this wall of money coming into the AI space. And I think that was true. It turned out to be true. But I said it would happen after September, third quarter, fourth quarter. But Railtown's left it right, just like a college student who's been out every night has to cram on the last night for the exam. Railtown's kind of left it to the last 2 or 3 weeks available to get some action. I don't know the strategy behind that. I really don't. If I look, I'm probably the wrong personality because I'd piss somebody off. But I'd go down to the regulator in person, say, what do I need to do here? Or I'd fly into Toronto, have a meeting with the attorneys and say, look, what's the issue? What's going on? Probably wouldn't work because I'd hurt their feelings, and then that would take 2 or 3 weeks to resolve. So I guess I'm probably the wrong one. So I should just let it go. But what's going to happen, I think most portfolio managers and advisors, and that's where most of your money is. Wall Street just gives money to managers. I think they're skiing, drinking, taking a break. They've already closed out their books for their bonuses sometime by the end of October, by the end of November. So December's going to be quiet. But I think what's going to happen coming around the corner, and I can't believe it's already been a year, and I predicted that last year, and it did happen. But I think not only is there going to be a wave, there's going to be a tsunami. I think there's going to be an ocean crashing over a barrier and creating a whole new sea of capital going into gold, silver, platinum, palladium, unobtainium, rhodinium, anything with the EM on the end of it, and the miners and the funds, So I'd like to start talking about that at some point, but I guess I'll wait. I will wait. Here's the theory we're trying to test with Railtown, and I think it's going to pass with flying colors. They're going to close that deal today, per their press release, assuming that the attorneys have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's that the regulators and et cetera need. So they will close that today. I guess there's a small caveat. They'll file the paperwork next week, mid next week. The company will be released to start talking to institutions, to research analysts. I guess there's a caveat there, is if there's another deal working, or if TELUS has more to tell us, maybe that shifts a little bit. I don't know. But in essence, the company can start next week, end of next week, talking to everybody. So I would say, for those bold and brave funds who are allowed to buy under $1, under $2, they could, and others, they could start maybe stepping their toe in 2 weeks, not next week, the following week. And research, I suppose, could start coming out, not next week, the following week. But I would it might be the third week from now, not next week, not the following week, third week. But by that time, I think all the research, all the telling of the story. So I guess we should plan on, I don't know where that takes. Today is closing day. So next week, we'll give them, the attorneys time to, recover from their hard work, check out the spa, get to know their dog, rearrange their calendar, have a couple of meetings with people in the conference room. So we'll give them all next week to sort that out. But maybe there'll be some tiptoeing in Thanksgiving week and maybe some research. And remember, we're talking Canada. Thanksgiving week. But I guess what I'm saying to you is I'd like to see some serious buying come in by the first, at the latest, the second week in December. And I think it's all about telling the story, get their manhood out of the attorneys' purses, and get on stage, get on the gridiron, get on the diamond, get on the court. Let's play ball. And so I guess I'd hope to see by the end of the second week of December that there's somebody, or more than one somebody, who starts buying in size in Canada. The following week is Hanukkah. The following week is Christmas and Kwanzaa. Following week is New Year's. And I don't know. I think it's all gonna come down to the first 2 weeks in December. And my targets, I'm not going to change them here. You can hold them against me. If I told you you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? But I think my numbers are going to shift into January. So I'm hopeful that I'll stick by this. My December 10th number is $4.25 a share. It could happen. I'm not saying it won't. But I'm going to give you an alternative reality. I think maybe 175 to 225 would be excellent if it happened by then. If we got out of December well above the dollar, my calendar ends, and got into January, it looks like the strategic plan, if there is any, let the attorneys stall everything so we can have a good January. I suppose you figure out where I stand on that strategy. But it's where we are, and it's okay. It's okay. This company doesn't need to go to the capital markets. It doesn't have to take money from a toxic financer. It's going to have revenue. We can go over that again. Maybe that's something we can talk about again. Just kind of write out some numbers on what the revenue could be. I think the revenue is going to hit with a crescendo. I think it's going to come out of the gate. Just so you know, what I'm talking about is revenue that can appear in a corporate presentation. I'm talking about revenue that an analyst can say full year 26 and full year 27. That kind of revenue. I'm not talking about did they book it. I'm not talking about that. I don't think that's relevant here. It's, do you have a movable path to 50 million in annual recurring revenues, and will that grow rapidly to 150 million in annual recurring revenues, and is that going to double to 300 million in annual recurring revenues over 12 to 18 months? That's enough to launch this stock, and it's enough to get the company bought out. That's what I'm talking about. And then the risk, I think, I don't know if they intended to do it, but the company chose to allow the process of acquiring AIP to take forever. Longer than building the Empire State Building. That was their choice. I don't know why, but because they did that, the consequence is we now have to take the risk, which I think is small, but it's not non-existent, that multiples change in January, February, and March. I don't think they are going to. I don't think this flood of capital is going to stop. But the longer things take, the more you're exposed. I should talk to you about the overall market again. I want to start talking about all those things. But it's not new to me, by the way. But I believe the market is going to have a final blow off top where you're going to see highs in the numbers I came up with a year ago or over a year ago. S&P is going to hit 8,500. Where is the S&P right now? 6,700. So that's a hell of a move. The Dow, I think, is going to go to 65,000. It's at 47,000 right now. NASDAQ, I think, is going to go to 30,000. It's at 20, almost 23,000 right now. I'm guessing my numbers are going to be low. The S&P could go to 10,000. The Dow maybe 65, 70,000. NASDAQ, maybe it goes to 35,000. Hell, why stop there? It could go to 40. The Russell, I don't know where the Russell's trading right now, but I think the Russell will go to 4,000. I think gold's headed to 5,000, silver to 120. In this just climactic end to a 45-year, 43-year, 42-year, 44-year bull market. Basically, all of my adult, unless you're Catholic, adulthood starts at confirmation. Post graduate, all of my adult professional life, we've been in a bull market in everything. I think that ends after this giant rally upward. And during that rally, everybody's going to be saying how glorious everything is. It'll be tough to bet against the crowd, but I think that'll be it. And what's annoying for people who are young, I used to be young, but I never knew what happened in the Great Depression or what happened to that stock market. But I had particularly my father would talk about it, what happened to his father and his grandparents, his maternal grandfather and his paternal grandfather. They had a hardware store in upstate New York, Kane's Hardware. That's my Irish, C-A-I-N, Kane. And there's a story there too, but let's skip that for now. But it scarred a generation. So when my dad came out of school and I, 'cause out of the Navy too. He taught it. He ended up teaching at the Naval Academy. But during that, I was already born. I guess all three of us were born by that time. He started exploring, a career, and he was offered a job at Ford Motor Company. I think it was Ford. If I have it back word, I don't think it was Chrysler. I think it was Ford. And he went through the whole process. I guess it was Detroit, and they took him through the offices, and they said, I don't know what they call them. I don't know how they pronounce my name up in Detroit. They probably pronounce it correctly. They said, Mr. Farron, this would be where your office would be. And we put your name right there. Right next to it, there was already a name. His office would have been right next door to Lee Iacocca. But his generation, his family, they remembered the Depression. And Dad, at least as I remember the story, Dad was accepted in the Foreign Service Officers program, the State Department. And he took that job instead because of the safety. But also he loved it. I mean, he loved being a diplomat. But he took that for the safety rather than the risk of the unknowables of a career in I guess basically you call it's hawking automobiles. And he had seen what had happened to businesses in his family with the Great Depression. That's coming. That is coming. I don't know if it'll be a full-on depression. We don't know. But I think in the 30s, if you're someone that's a day trader, hot money, always hot money, cocky, come on and give me grief, always pitching woo, always trading, that's going to end. And I have a feeling a lot of the abuses on Wall Street will end as well, because people will lose their pensions, they will lose their IRAs, a lot of people may lose their houses, and we may get a president who's actually like FDR, unlike Barack Obama, who makes sure people can keep their houses. There's going to be a rebellion against the banksters, but it might all be too late. But the bottom line is, whatever the peak is, if I'm right, let's say the Dow goes to 65,000, I should probably raise my S&P target to 10,000 and maybe raise my NASDAQ target to 40,000 and raise my Russell target even a little bit. But whatever that is, whenever it gets there, those numbers will never be achieved again in at least, I would say at least a generation, maybe two generations, 20, 30, 40 years from now, they might get back to those highs. Now, that doesn't mean you won't be able to make money. I've told you so many times that a friend of mine who became my manager, he used to say that when there's a correction or the bear market, it becomes a market of stocks. It's not a stock market anymore, it's a market of stocks. So anyway, I do think what's going to happen, and it's not going to happen overnight, but I think some point starting end of next year. Well, actually, I think it's going to start first quarter, and we may not be ready for it. I'm still waiting on a funding that I hope can allow me to create something we can all participate in. But I don't know. I give up. I totally give up on how boss bureaucrats think, whatever their characteristics. But what I think is going to come, which is going to be exciting, and I think Trump recognizes this, he won't be around, but there's going to be a reindustrialization of the United States of America. There's going to be a reshoring of business. We've already given away all of our patents, all of our technology, all of our know-how, all of our we still allow China, our competitor, to get economic benefits as if she were a fourth world country. Anyway, that's all happened. We can't change it. But as the cycle comes back, things are going to start happening in North America. And that's why I think Trump talked about getting the Panama Canal, because China's building a canal through the middle of Mexico, and somebody else trying to do one through Nicaragua. Trump knows we have to control our shipping. And he also talked about buying Greenland and buying Canada. It's not about megalomania. It's about looking forward and recognizing the world is going to break into three, probably, maybe four, but three spheres of superpowerdom. Maybe four, maybe five, maybe six. It's going to be a multipolar world. But at least to start out with, the country with the most advanced weaponry and frankly, the largest ready-to-go army, as far as I can tell, Russia will be the focal point of. They've got the energy, they've got the educated people, they've got the military. Somehow they have the integrity in media, they have religion back, and their financial system is getting there. That'll be one. It'll be interesting. Will it extend? How far will it extend into the second area, which will be China and Southeast Asia? Is there going to be a clash? And then how the Slavophile problem. Is Russia a European nation or an Asian nation or both? So how far will Russia, I don't understand why Germany doesn't just turn their trains around and start supplying Russia and getting Russian energy. But there's anger, there's animosity. But how far does Russian sphere of influence go into Europe? We'll find out. So the three areas that are clear: Russia, China, and the United States. But then you've got the Middle East is going to either be its own or it's going to fit into one of those. And then you've got Africa, and I think Southern Africa. Now I'm forgetting which country it's in. They got oil. So maybe Africa becomes its own sphere, or it links up with one of the three, hopefully. But China's been there. While we've been bombing deserts and assaulting mountains and generally dissipating our head start and wealth and focusing on social agendas that frankly only women could vote for, and they do, the United States has fallen way back, and allowed China, who doesn't give a crap about any of that social, let's make everything even. They just come in. They lend the money. They have the contracts with Kenya, with I can't remember the other ones I've read about, but they already have their hooks into Africa. But you know what? Despite all of our problems, a lot of people don't like dealing with the Chinese, and they'd rather deal with us. So maybe we can get rid of our CIA-led approach and come with our open, honest, fair American approach. But anyway, Africa will either be its own place or it'll be in between. And then there's South America. I think it's pretty clear that Australia will initially want to be with the United States, but it's very close to China and gets all. So there's going to be a vacuum. There's going to be a sifting and sorting of how the world is. And I think Trump realizes that if North America, down to the Panama Canal, can focus on its industrial strengths, using its resources, and meeting head on these challenges, we have a bright future ahead. But America needs, our banking system needs more collateral, and I think it needs a complete washout. It needs to be fair, and it needs to be more not egalitarian, that's the wrong word. It needs more participants. That's what it needs. More participants, more banks, more we've got to get away from the oligarchy. Anyway, what does that mean for us here? It means that the way to make sure that you have wealth or that you're independent is going to be commodities, oil and gas, things you know, anything that you know, your businesses, but it's going to come back to North America. It's either going to come back with us kicking and screaming, or we're going to embrace it, accelerate it, and make it happen. The United States still has the greatest concept of who we are in the world, but we're just taken over by some really misguided people and just a handful of banks. Hopefully we'll wake up. But I'd love to start getting you into and understanding commodities. And that's where the investments are the leadership of the next decade is going to be commodities. I think AI will still be there. Of course, software's not going to go anywhere. But the leadership will. When I first got in the business, financial assets represented in the Dow and the other indices weren't as focused on. They were there, but they just weren't as emphasized. But financial type assets, I can't remember exactly. I would say it was as low as 1 or 2 or 3%. Now I would guess, and I am guessing, that in the indices, financial assets are 30 or 40%. That's going to change. That will change. All right, it's 2:00. Let me shut up. Let's see how Railtown's doing. Of course, it'll be down. 100 shares went off, had to be out, just had to get out of 100 shares on the bid. Nope, is above the bid. 100 shares at 41.22. So somebody had to sell $40 worth of stock. The bid is 53. There's a lot of, the bid is moving around. It seems like somebody's there. Of course, the ask is sitting there making you want to believe there's a lot for sale. The volume 75,590. The last trade is 41.22. Let's see how it's trading up in Canada. Obviously, it's down in Canada as we wait and 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 wait. There's a big bid up there. 18,500 shares are bid for at 57 cents, but the last trade is 58 cents in Canada. I'm sure there's a 15 or 20-minute delay here. With a volume of 65,876, the bidder, part of the bid is W.D. Latimer, and the offer is CIBC World Markets. Last news 8 days ago. There is a form. November 12th. What does this say? All right. What's today? The 14th. I should have seen this. I don't know when this was filed. I keep looking. I keep forgetting. We're not in love anymore. I keep forgetting. All right. So the Form 7 was filed, it says November 12th, for Railtown AI Technologies. I'll see if I can find it for you, but here, let me just read it to you. That's interesting. The monthly progress report must be posted before the opening of trading on the 5th trading day of each month. They're a little late. You're a little short, aren't you, buddy? This report is not intended to replace the issuer's obligation to separately report material information forthwith. Do they know the definition of forthwith up in Toronto? Upon the information becoming known to management or to post the forms required by exchange policies. If material information became known and was reported during the preceding month to which this report relates, this report should refer to the material information, the news release date, and the posting date on the exchange website. That's pretty good policy. This report is intended to keep investors and the market informed of the issuer's ongoing delays and excuses and inexplicable pauses caused by paperwork and regulators and lawyers and inability to get anything out over the last 11 months. Doesn't say that. This report is intended to keep investors and the market informed of the issuer's ongoing business and management activities that occurred during the preceding month. Do not discuss goals or future plans unless they have crystallized to the point that they are quote unquote material information as defined in the policies. The discussions in this report must be factual, balanced, and non-promotional. Well, I think we can rest assured that this company puts out non-promote, takes a long ass time to promote anything. All right, so let's see this is good. Let's see what they say. General instructions. A, prepare this monthly progress report using the format set out below. The sequence of questions must not be altered, nor should questions be omitted or left unanswered. The answers to the items must be in narrative form. State when the answer to any item is negative or not applicable to the issuer. The title to each item must precede the answer. The term issuer includes the issuer and any of its subsidiaries. Terms used and not defined in this form are defined or interpreted in Policy 1, Interpretation and General Provisions. Okay, so we get to the meat of Form 7, Monthly Progress Report, which is kind of exciting, something to talk about. So the first item is report on business. Number 1, provide a general overview and discussion of the development of the issuer's business and operations over the previous month. Where the issuer was inactive, disclose this fact. So here's the answer. I should show it to you so you believe I'm reading it. Here's the answer. During the month of October, the team continued to add functionality to the platform by adding, developing features and revamping marketing efforts. Okay. All right, so first bullet point. Currently, over 1,200 companies / users on the platform. That's interesting. Platform, bullet point. Working on observability and error tracking for all AI agents. That sounds good. 2, working on SOC 2 audit, year 2. I can't translate that. That sounds good, but I don't know the import. Next bullet point, adding software as a solution, data connectors to the Conductor platform. This will allow building agents that can access enterprise data. Next bullet point, adding new project type, AI agent, to better support agentic project observability. So that was the discussion of the platform. Now they've gone to the next discussion, integrations. Bullet point, working on a modern Microsoft Teams integration and replacing the legacy integration. Okay. Next bullet point, working on Azure develops one-click integration with multiple board support. Sounds good. All right, so that was integrations. The next highlight is AI. AI. You can call me AI. This is all under the first part of the answer on report on business. There's one bullet point under AI. Working on next set of features and feedback. They're adding the multimodal support and adding vector store support. All right, so number 2 under the report on business is the question by the exchange. Provide a general overview and discussion of the activities of management. Well, certainly devoid of chastising attorneys. I don't know that. I take it all back. The answer is management continued to exercise oversight over technical work and corporate matters. Okay. Sounds like a catch-all answer, but that's good. All right, so then the third category, describe and provide details of any new products or services developed or offered. For resource companies, provide details of new drilling, exploration or production programs, and acquisition of any new properties, and attach any mineral or oil and gas or other reports required under Ontario securities law. Answer, not applicable. Number 4 is describe and provide details of any products or services that were discontinued. For resource companies, provide details of any drilling, exploration, or production programs that have been amended or abandoned. Answer, not applicable. All right, so number 5. Describe any new business relationships entered into between the issuer, the issuer's affiliates, or third parties, including contracts to supply products and services, joint venture agreements, and licensing agreements, etc. State whether the relationship is with a related person of the issuer and provide details of the relationship. Answer. During the month of October, Railtown announced a memorandum of understanding with Uniserve Communications Corp on the Toronto, a provider of managed IT, cloud, and data center services with a 30-year operating history and over 10,000 businesses served. This strategic partnership positions Railtown to deliver its cutting-edge AI solutions to Uniserve's extensive network of approximately 3,000 small and medium-sized enterprises. They're their customers, significantly expanding Railtown's market reach and impact. It's a pretty good answer. Gotta like that answer. Number 6, describe the expiry or termination of any contracts or agreements between the issuer, the issuer's affiliates or third parties, or cancellation of any financing arrangements that have been previously announced. Answer, not applicable, which is good. So we know they're moving forward with the AIP deal. Number 7, describe any acquisitions by the issuer or dispositions of the issuer's assets that occurred during the preceding month. Provide details of the nature of the assets acquired or disposed of, and provide details of the consideration paid or payable together with a schedule of payments, if applicable, and of any valuation. State how the consideration was determined and whether the acquisition was from, or the consideration was determined and whether the acquisition was from, or the disposition was to a related person of the issuer, and provide details of the relationship. Answer. During the month of October, the company announced that it had entered into an amalgamation agreement with AIP Partnerships Corp. And a newly incorporated, wholly owned subsidiary of the company, pursuant to which Railtown agreed to acquire all of the issued and outstanding shares of AIP in exchange for up to 50 million common shares of Railtown by way of a three-cornered amalgamation, with the result that AIP will become a wholly owned subsidiary of Railtown upon the closing of this transaction. It's a good answer. When taken in combination with the previous answer, we know that deal hasn't been canceled, so that's good to know. Always good to know. It's always good to know. Number 8, describe the acquisition of new customers or loss of customers. Not applicable. Number 9, describe any developments or effects of intangible products such as brand names, circulation lists, copyrights, franchises, licenses, patents, software, subscription lists, and trademarks. Not applicable. Number 10, report any employee hirings, terminations, or layoffs with details of anticipated length of layoffs. Not applicable. Number 11, report on any labor disputes and resolutions of those disputes, if applicable. Not applicable. Number 12, describe and provide details of legal proceedings to which the issuer became a party, including the names of the court or agency, the date instituted, the principal parties to the proceedings, the nature of the claim, the amount claimed, if any, if the proceedings are being contested, and the present status of the proceedings. Answer. Not applicable. 13, provide details of any indebtedness incurred or repaid by the issuer, together with terms of such indebtedness. Answer. Not applicable. Number 14, please provide details of any securities issued and options or warrants granted. Answer. Common shares issued 241,675. Details: exercise, use of proceeds $80,000 to be used for general working and capital purposes. Number 11, state aggregate proceeds and intended allocation of proceeds. That was answered above it. on the form rather than below it. All right, number 15. Provide details of any loans to or by related persons. Not applicable. Number 16. Please provide, there's no please. Provide details of any changes in directors, officers, or committee members. Not applicable. Number 17. Discuss any trends which are likely to have an impact on the issuer, including trends in the issuer's markets or political/regulatory trends. Not applicable. Certificate of compliance. The undersigned hereby certifies that 1. The undersigned is a director and or senior officer of the issuer and has been duly authorized by a resolution of the board of directors of the issuer to sign this certificate of compliance. 2. As of the date hereof, there is no material information concerning the issuer which has not been publicly disclosed. 3. That's interesting. That's good to know. 3. The undersigned hereby certifies to the exchange that the issuer is in compliance with the requirements of applicable securities legislation as such term is defined in National Instrument 14-101 and all exchange requirements as defined in CNSX Policy 1. 4. All of the information in this Form 7 monthly progress report is true. Dated November 12, 2005. Paul Woodward, Chief Financial Officer. Railtown AI Technologies, October report for the month, date of the report, 11/12/25. Address, Burnaby, British Columbia. And that's it. That is it. Well, I take away from it that the deal's still on. The deal is still on. And there's been no financings, no troubles that way. It's a good report. It's a good report. All right, so it's 222. Your stock, of course, is still down on the day. It is last trade 1,162 shares, 42.3. The bid is 0.4033. The ask is 0.4259. And that's just how it goes. The volume is 77,660 shares. And that's where we are. So let me go down your comments. Some gotta win, some gotta lose. Good time, Charlie. It's gotta lose. Gonna lose. Steve, number 1. Got my name sewn on my shirt. I'm an ordinary dude. I still have to work. Yeah. Jeff Grimm, how are you? Hey, Jeff Grimm. Eddie Eagle, hello. Justin Babbitt, For Jeremy Simmons, I think you're number 5. I think you're number 5. Hey, Steve. All right, Justin. That means we may be over. We are definitely over 15.5 million. Sorry, Devion. That's no reflection of my excitement. Just a reflection of my condition. Just dropped in to see what condition my condition is in. That's a good purchase. 3,041.5. That's a good purchase. That's right. That's right, Justin. Over 15.5. Bravo. Hey, KYP, how are you? Good to see you. How are things up in Brooklyn? It's not Brookline, Brooklyn. It's going to snow, I hear. And you've got Ma'am Dammy, just who you want, I guess. I have to say, I wouldn't want Cuomo. I would not want Cuomo. Ugh. Be rid of him. Sam Guest bought another 5,000. Sam G. That's great, Sam. Take advantage of the pause for the cause. Wall Street Wolfie, we are cautious. We have been disappointed so many times. Yeah, that probably describes me. I'm not cautious about. I believe. Let me be clear. I think Railtown is going to have huge revenues forward. We'll try to, mock it up. But if I had to guess, we'll see 50 million to 100 million, maybe as high as 125, 150 million annual recurring revenue projected sometime in the first quarter that goes forward, projected. And as long as the multiples are there, Wall Street Wolfie, this company's going to be worth a lot of money, So I'm not disappointed or cautious about that. I'm a little worn out, and I'm worried about whether people are going to wait until January or February, because I hope the stock's $1, $2 by Thanksgiving, maybe the week after Thanksgiving, and I hope maybe it's even stronger by Christmas. That would be great, but it's not Wall Street. It's not my larger projections that I've given before, because we're just waiting for these. We're just waiting on paperwork, and we're all used to that in our life. If anyone's gone to the DMV or ordered a passport or applied to be applied for anything. Martin Giroux. Hey, Will, did you see the halt on GNS? No, let me look. I don't really care about the stock, but might as well look. It's halted. What are they going to do? A gigantic reverse split? Or they're going to have another contract they can announce? Or he's going to put out a video that the short, it's his fight. It's his $1 trillion fight. Let's see. Something to do with designs? Genius Group and Nuan Nu launched $14 million projects in Bali, so he can go visit Bali. That's pretty genius. Genius Group acquires 51% of Bali Genius School and City for 7.1. Genius Group offers 0.10, a tenth of a share of Bitcoin loyalty bonus for DRS holders. Will GNS profit from the AI boom? I don't know. Is GNS stock bottoming out? Genius Group CEO Roger Hamilton buys additional shares. Well, he just awards himself. Whatever. I'm not going to point out the tricks of that. All right, let's look at the chart. Martin, let's look at the chart and see if there's anything there. To get well, you could say that it's had a declining wedge, and now, which is a bullish pattern, and now it's breaking to the upside. And if that's true, I would say it could go to $1.50, but it's going to have a hard time getting past $1.10. And I don't think it'll have a hard time once it gets through that. But if you look at the longer term chart, on this stock, you can really see what you're up against. This is where he started saying it was his fight, and he raised money. I mean, it's possible it's going to go up. It's possible. But, man, well, I mean, if you're in it, good luck. I mean, that is, even on this chart, you can broadly try to see a wedge pattern, but it's not a very good one. It's not very clean. And if it breaks below 68 cents, it's going to go to 32.5. Well, maybe 35. So how's MACD? The MACD has flatlined. I don't know, Martin. Let me look and see if there's any news in the filings. Report of foreign issuer on 11/10. Genius Group Limited, Singapore. On November 5th, the company completed a purchase agreement with Nuamu Creative City in a joint venture. The company has chosen to adjust its treasury operations in light of current market conditions and has revised its strategy to minimize dilution of shares and reduce debt by utilizing a portion of its Bitcoin and cash reserves to cover short-term cash requirements for acquisitions, to pay down debt, and to provide reserves for future share buybacks. As part of the strategy, the company has reduced the Bitcoin in its treasury from 200 Bitcoin to 138 Bitcoin as of November 9, and increased the cash balance in its treasury. The 62 Bitcoin sold by the company were sold at a profit of approximately $200,000. Once the company believes the price of Bitcoin stabilizes and downside risk reduces, the company will recommence buying Bitcoin. Further to the company's successful completion of the Entrepreneur Resorts transaction, Entrepreneur Resorts is being rebranded as Genius Resorts by January. The company is pleased to announce the group of companies achieved operational profitability in the month of October before overhead and central costs. What does that mean? The company continues to make progress towards its target of overall profitability and positive EBITDA. Signed, the Rabbit. Well, I don't see why it's halted, Martin. I guess I could Google it. Genius Group, according to the NASDAQ, this is a month old. Genius Group faces increased challenges and potential delisting from the NYSE. So maybe they're doing a reverse split. It says they're on the Amex, so let me Google it that way. Yes, trading of Genius Group Limited on the Amex exchange was halted today. The trading halt for GNS occurred at 11:38 this morning. As per general trading procedures, halts are typically initiated for regulatory reasons, such as pending news dissemination, and last until the issue is resolved. And I guess the Amex now is under the NASDAQ when it comes to trading halts. I don't know what to tell you. If I had to guess, they're going to do a reverse split with a financing, but who knows? That's just a guess. It might be unfair, Martin. Let's move on. Thank you. Tebow Teals, hello. Edward Barona, yeah, sure. Donna, good afternoon. William and RT Crew, good afternoon. Jeremy Simmons, off topic, William, but I've listened to your crap for years now. Just kidding. Think you are a good dude and hope this Railtown lands for you and have no financial worries. Honestly, do you think him is a fraud? I haven't said that. What's your thoughts? I haven't said that. I think Ham is very hardworking. He makes, he's not afraid of calling anyone and making his presentation over and over and over again. I've always believed he's sincere in his fight against short selling. And I think that's what motivates him. But that's the prologue. That's the bank holiday. You holiday, I holiday. You holiday, I holiday. It's so hard to get the concepts across because it sounds like conspiracy theory, as if, there are conspiracies. But here's, in this book, which I've read the main part of the book to everybody, The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb, which you can buy online or you can just download the book. You don't have to buy it. On page 7, dematerialization. The first sentence of chapter 2. There are now no property rights to securities held in book entry form in any jurisdiction globally. If Russia changed that or if China changed that, everybody would go trade there. So the basic report recommended changing from processing physical stock certificates to book entry transfers of ownership via computerized entries in a trust company that would hold the underlying certificates immobilized. And that's the DTC in the United States. So chapter 3 is entitled Security Entitlement. And it's long. I don't want to reread it. But here's the key points, Jeremy. Ownership of securities as property has been replaced with a new legal concept of quote unquote a security entitlement, which is a contractual claim assuring a very weak position if the account provider becomes insolvent. All securities are held in unsegregated pooled form. And then these securities are used as collateral even restricted securities are held in that same pool. All account holders, including those who have prohibited the use of their securities as collateral, must, by law, thank you, Bill Clinton, receive only a pro rata share of residual assets if there's a bankruptcy. The account provider, that's your brokerage firm, may legally borrow the pooled securities to collateralize proprietary trading and financing. That's what these guys do. This is the high frequency trading. And that's legal. Account providers, that's your brokerage firm, are legally empowered to borrow pooled securities without restriction. There's no restriction legally. It's called self-help. It's called self-help. It goes on and on. But I've read that all to everyone, Jeremy. The bottom line is, as it relates to your question, I think, and him, I understand publicly has said that I have my head up my ass, which is an unfortunate turn of the phrase. But so I might be wrong. But the idea, Jeremy, that companies are going to reconcile their books or cause a buy-in just because shares are short, no matter how many. I mean, I just read it to you. These are derivatives. It's proprietary trading. They can lend them out. They can do whatever they want with them. They're not allowed to violate securities laws, but they do that as a matter of course. So I think his fight is sincere, but it's standing on quicksand, or it's tilting at windmills. I think a much more effective fight would be, and this is partly why I'm trying to build everyone's assets here. If we have 15.5 million shares, let's go to the extreme, and it goes to $100. We have a lot of stock. We have a lot of buying power, but half of that's a lot. A quarter of that is a lot. 15 billion, 1.5 billion, or 250 million, whatever. At that point, Jeremy, I think collectively we could work with Busy Brands, Junk Savvy, Anna, Patrick, people that have been fighting, others too. I just can't remember all the names. But collectively, we could afford to hire a lobbying firm. And what we would have to do, if we want to take on the whole system, is to effect policy change. That's the core of this, is policy change. I don't see it happening, but we could try it. We could also go out with an awareness campaign. I think we'd be more effective setting up an alternative exchange, which in fairness is something that Ham has suggested as well, or setting up a private exchange, or taking over I don't know, a fund. I'd have to sit down with an attorney and with strategists and just go back and forth over the implications. But set up a company or as I'll give you an example, Jeremy. If I ever get funded with a partner, I'd like to make a run at a company that I have in mind, and it's probably too late, but I'd like to do it and take over their offices and facilities and make it work for everybody. I would go so far as to, particularly in the case of GoLogic, for example, could be a way to go public. Anyway, there's a lot of variables, but one thing I was thinking about, I don't know the legal requirements, and I'm sure Wall Street has in every jurisdiction made it difficult because they're a bunch of overpaid wankers and liars. What I would try to do maybe, and maybe it has to be offshore, or maybe it's in the United States, set up a limited market for certain securities who agree not to be traded book entry. You have to have physical shares. And, set up a vault, set up record keeping, and set up AI or computer scanning so that everything can be quick. Everything can be, there's no delay, but hold the securities in a vault and maybe just be open for trading for short periods of time so that it tries to reflect real bid and ask, real market or price discovery, real price discovery. And then invite people, those companies, try to have, or set up a trading desk, with market makers just for those shares. But I would try to limit the hours that they would trade and maybe extend it beyond 3 days, like settlement is, well, I don't know about the requirement with settlement, but the exchanges, they never close for 3 days. There's always something open so they can continue this fraud. I would test that. I would try to maybe be available for trading on Mondays and no other days, something like that. So there could be no shorting, is my point, no manipulation. And have research and have conferences, all that stuff. I think that would be really interesting to do. And I think if you did it with a few companies, all of a sudden, you could be the next Amex or the next Philadelphia or the next Boston Exchange. And I think it'd be a lot of um, well, I think it'd be exciting, but I think there would be a lot of fundraising and investment banking and deal flow that would just flock to an honest exchange. And I think with AI and with computers, um, and with just a few basic rules, and with talent, we could build something up. So anyway, I got off track. But as it relates to Ham, I think Ham is sincere in his fight, and he shares his information with anyone, whether it's 50 shares or 50,000 shares. But I think the premise of the fight is unfortunately wrong. My guess is I've never Googled Ham's story, but my guess is he left his trading desks sometime before or around the mid to early 90s. And this change in the UCC occurred in 1994 under Bill Clinton. After that, the players on Wall Street, they hadn't quite conquered all of the settlements yet or taken land from all their neighbors yet. They had to keep pushing and pushing while people were distracted, keep pushing and pushing. And they used lobbyists and attorneys and gullible regulators and gullible congresswomen and men. And by around 2010, 2011, they moved it to where there are no physical securities anymore. So they've essentially, Jeremy, in my opinion, they've turned the securities markets into a fractional reserve security system, fractional reserve storage, fractional reserve ownership. They've imitated fractional reserve money banking, and it's fraught with a lot of risks, but it's legal. Breaking securities laws is not legal, so there's still that. But just to summarize, Jeremy, I fought a lot of that, but I believe the best way to fighting this horrible system that's caused a lot of you and me money, I think it's finding an investment that can make people's red go away and maybe get into the green by many multiples. I think it's Railtown. I know it's silver. And I'm pretty sure that I can build something in the oil and gas arena that everybody can generate income and green. But oil and gas is the last conference that I go to every year, the best conference. Oil and gas is already flooded by 35-year-old private equity know-it-alls. It's already happening. And the reason why is what I saw. It's not hard to see. If you have money, you can go create cash flow. And then if you're a private equity dude or gal, you can generate fees every year. It's pretty simple. But anyway, let me make sure I answered your question. This is Jeremy Simmons, off topic, Mr. William, but I've listened to you for years now. Thank you. Think you are a good dude, and hope this Railtown lands for you. So you're not in Railtown, and you have no financial worries. Well, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm not. Let me be clear, Jeremy. I'm not being paid by the company. I have no arrangement with the company. They have not given me shares, warrants, a stipend, a salary or an engagement. They haven't given me cash. And there's absolutely no agreement, whether written or informal, to do so. So when Railtown works out, it's not going to change my financial situation at all. In terms of my personal finances and accounts, I got destroyed. My account got destroyed by, um, it started, I guess, with CRTD. Um, uh, then it became GTII, destroyed my account. And then Finger, whilst I made some good trading decisions in Finger, and I gave advice that I think was good on Finger, right at the time of that movie, I just the pressure to get over and give an interview, be with those guys, complete in retrospect, a mistake, and I don't want to blame anybody, but that was options expiration Friday, and I couldn't get back. I mean, I had my phone with me, but I'm talking to these guys, giving interviews. I bought them lunch, and I couldn't get back to it till after the close. I checked one or two times. I saw it was a disaster, but I assumed that, which is bad. You can't make assumptions. I couldn't do anything when I looked. I'm like, damn it, I just lost that. So, but then Friday night, Saturday morning, E-Trade exercised all these calls that had no bid, zero bid. They exercised them all. And Monday morning, I called. I tried to move in money. I tried to rearrange, sell some other things. And of course, the criminals know that Monday morning there's going to be sellouts. So they sell the stock down. And that's what happened. I was sold out. And I don't think it was fair or correct or right. I called in, but I couldn't do anything about it. I said, "Why did you exercise them?" "Well, sir, that's your fault." I said, "Really? I, you had to sell?" I said, "You couldn't sell them. You exercised them at a penny?" Anyway, long and short of it, Finger wiped out, I think, 120 grand. I haven't gone back to look at it because it breaks my heart. But Finger wiped out something like 120, maybe more grand in that weekend. And so my accounts, Jeremy, have been just, and then of course, Logic was a complete disaster. And of course, I lost money in MMTLP. So my account, Jeremy, for your, not that it's your business, my account got totally wiped out. I have been, since then, trading a little bit in small ways. The Fingers, the Nixies, the GDCs, the G-Bucks, the ZJYLs, these kind of stocks. And primarily in my IRA, because I was able to add money, of course. And so I don't have a big IRA account. I don't have a big one. Hey, I'm telling you, I got destroyed by these stories. I believed in the short squeeze story as a possibility. I believed in buy-ins because I used to experience them. But I left Wall Street in the mid-90s. So I didn't know the rules had changed. And once I found out earlier this year by reading the Morgan report, the letter that David Morgan writes, I would say it was February, it might have been March. I've been sharing it with everybody. I think I have to accept the black and white evidence that Wall Street's rules have been changed to benefit a very few men, such that there are not going to be buy-ins. So I don't believe the premise anymore. What I've been trying to do, Jeremy, with my IRA primarily, is June 4th or 5th, it was the Thursday, I was still of a mind that if I played 3 or 4 of these stocks that we supposedly are getting all this great information on about squeeze, it was the 5th of June, that I could slowly make my account significant again, my IRA. Well, I had a decision, Jeremy, to make. I'll just sell a little bit of Nixie. I'll sell a little bit of GDC. I'll sell a little bit of G-Bucks. And I think there was another stock, maybe 2 other stocks. And I'll just buy a little bit of Railtown, which I did. But I think that either a Wednesday or it was Wednesday night that I made my plans. And so Thursday morning, I woke up early. I sat down and I thought, gee whiz, if you're going to do it, why diversify? Why, if you believe in it, why spread everything out across the manure? Why not just focus on the one stalk of whatever corn that's growing and just let that work? So I Thursday that morning, I decided, and it made me so nervous. I got up, I either took a shower or walked up and got a cup of coffee before I did anything to just make sure this is what I was going to do. I decided I was going to sell everything. That meant I was going to miss out on the squeeze on G-Bucks. I was going to miss out on the squeeze on Nixie. I was going to miss out on the squeeze on GDC. I was going to miss out on the squeeze on ZJYL and one or 2 of these others. So I came back and I said, all right, I'm going to do it because the story here is so powerful. So I did it. I sold everything. I bought Railtown, I think, at 35 cents. I don't, that's the average. I don't know. It might have been 34 cents. And then I thought to myself that I should talk about that with everybody. And so from that afternoon onward, all I've talked about is Railtown. Now, for me, and by the way, Railtown went down. It went down to 22 cents afterwards. So when I was talking to people, I told them what I did. And for the next week or so or less, the next trading days, more than 1, more than 2, people had a chance to buy the stock for less than I paid for it. But then Tony the Twinkle-Toed Tiger came on and said that everything I was saying, he didn't use my name, but you could tell who he was talking about, that it was a fraud and that the company had an ongoing operations clause, going concern clause, and you've got to read the documents, like only he reads filings, and you can't just listen to somebody who doesn't read filing. It's just a nightmare. And so for about a month, he was trashing the story without even knowing it. Well, now he's talked to the company and for some reason they think he's whatever. So now I think he supports the company. It's the only, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he says that it's the only position he's made this summer. I don't know. But he cost people buying the stock in the 20-cent range, 22 cents, 24 cents, 25 cents, 27 cents, 28 cents, while he, in his ill-informed, uninformed, knee-jerk, I think dishonest, but certainly reckless way, he told people to stay away and not buy it. It's unfortunate, but my point is, Jeremy, after I did that on the Thursday, people had a chance to buy the stock for less money than I paid for it. So for me to create a significant account, which is my goal, I want to get back to having a significant account. It's either going to happen in stages where Railtown goes to a number that's significant enough that I look at it and I say, well, I'm going to borrow against it and buy a couple of, something else. Or it goes to a number and the story becomes a little muddy. And by the way, I'm going to talk about it if that's the case. I'm not going to do anything without talking to everybody first, such that you decide to get out at $20 or $30, which is what I think will happen. And I don't want anybody selling. I think Railtown's going to be purchased by Microsoft or by Constellation Software or by Apple or by I don't know, TELUS maybe. But if TELUS buys it, they better do it quickly, because they can't afford the prices, the values that I think Railtown could achieve. So anyway, my goal, Jeremy, and what I'm telling everybody here is I think you hold the stock until it's bought out. And I think that buyout could happen within 6 months to 9 months. And you could see a flurry of proposals sooner than that. And so I think for me, to answer your question, if Railtown is purchased, obviously in my IRA it doesn't matter, but to the extent that I have a tiny bit elsewhere, you get that equity increase without having to pay taxes. But more importantly, you end up, let's say, with Microsoft stock, which you can buy puts on, you can sell calls against, collect a dividend. But so to get to the answer, Jeremy, if Microsoft were to buy the stock for $70, $80, $90 a share, over 100 in stock, I think I would make up all my losses. Maybe at a cheaper price. Look, at a cheaper price, at least my account would be significant again, and I could start doing some other things with it. But I'm not doing this, Jeremy, I'm not doing this campaign and this daily grind because I'm trying to look out for myself, and suddenly I'm going to have no financial worries. I'll have financial worries. I'll have things I have to deal with. I'll have things I'll have to sort. And I have received nothing from the company that I'm trying to get to a price where I'll have no worries. That, Jeremy, is not my goal here. My goal really here is to help, or I should say, I think this is my goal. Do any of us really understand our motivations? I don't know. But I really want to help people who were hurt and lost money in MMTOP, lost money in MULN, Torchlight, COSM, uh, uh, whatever it was called, Vocal, G, but it goes on and on. I want these people that lost money, but even more who lost their belief in the American government, in the American trading markets, and who now feel helpless. How do we make our money back? What do I, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help for those who listen to me. I haven't gone into the whatever it's called, the space calls, because I don't think it's appropriate. I don't want to go in with my agenda to try to poach or get people to listen to me. If they come, they come. If they don't, I've been doing this for a while. I think if they had interest, they already would have listened. But it's not like I'm going out to try to interfere with what other people are doing. I'm just doing my little bit so that hopefully a significant number of people can get their money back and get their sense of confidence back and get their sense of financial strength and wholeness back, and just get away from these corrupted markets and stories. They're all manipulated. I don't believe Railtown is at all. I think Railtown's the way out. And I think people, once they have their account, if people have purchased enough Railtown and avoided all these other stocks like I did, and I didn't want to hear the prices, I was like, oh my gosh, did it squeeze? If they can wait for Railtown to be bought out, which is what I think is going to happen, they can take 1 or 2% of their account, depending on how much they bought. And that's equivalent to what they're trading in these manipulated stocks. They can do that in a separate account somewhere if they want to. But my advice is to move away from it altogether. So my goal, Jeremy, is to help people get their money back, but also see a multiple of return that makes them in the green, I hope by many multiples, to pay for the hurt, the costs, the pain of this whole procedure. So I'm hoping to help people get to the point where they're their own independent financial strongholds, where they treat their accounts and their financial decisions as if they are their own central bank. That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I started talking about silver, I don't know, 2 years ago now. But I've stopped. I've only focused on Railtown because I think Railtown, you can buy it at 44 cents. And I still believe it's going to be $4-5. Take a deep breath. I still think it could happen by the end of the year, but maybe it's January, But then from there, I think it can be a $40-50 stock, and then I think it can be bought out, $80, $90, $100. That might be too high. As I make those projections, we have to fill in information as we go. What are the revenues? What are the multiples? What's the overall market? But I really think Railtown is the way people can create a significant account. And then we can go back and look at income, look at silver, look at gold, look at miners, look at oil and gas, look at other ideas. But not down in these crappy stocks. Up where there's research analysts, there are followings, Anyway, that's a long answer to your question, Jeremy. But at the end of your question, is honest, I guess you mean in honestly? I don't know what you mean. Is honestly, do you think Ham is a fraud? Those are your words, not mine. I never said it. I think he works with 2 or 3 guys who I consider the tip of the fraud. So I don't know what to say to you. I think you have to make your own judgment. But I think Ham's campaign against the short selling abuses is sincere. But like that movie with Tom Hanks, with a feather that floated down, it's like my mama always told me, life is like a box of chocolates. I forgot what he said there, but he said stupid is as stupid does or something. Well, I would say, you can frame your question along Forrest Gump's lines and maybe come up with your own answer. Jeremy says, good things, my man, and everyone's. Thank you very much. Tebow, click thumbs up. Thank you for weighing. Neil Gondik, what time is it? 3:22. Let's see what the stock is doing. GNS is still halted. And by the way, Jeremy, I think it's a nearly impossible fight. I think it's Don Quixote against the windmills, because the system is set up to use this pattern to steal, and nobody cares. So the only way out, I think, is Railtown, and then staying out of the sewer. If you don't want to smell like shit, stop walking in the sewer. That's what we have to do. Good, Neil Gondik, good morning, Bill, and fellow Railtown team. Sitting on the launch pad. I agree with that. Look at these 58 cents getting absorbed. Well, that's interesting point. They're selling, somebody's selling, but somebody's buying. So it's a very good point. I'll look at that. Getting absorbed on the Canadian Stock Exchange. Next is go time, and look at that 2-year chart. Yeah, I'll try to do that. Neil. I love your support. I really do. I think you're right. CJ Yukon, I'm on an hour late. What did I miss? We're just waiting. We're just passing the time, waiting for the paperwork to get done. But I think that today is it. Today, the acquisition of AIP is completed. Then it's got to go through the regulatory slot. Hopefully that's tonight. I don't think so. I think it'll be by Wednesday. That'll happen. And I think we're, like Neil says, we're sitting at the launch pad. I agree with Neil on that. Goldium. Yes, Goldium, Tebow. And Silverium. Yes. I think silver is going to be unobtainium. I think silver is going to go missing. But we're not there yet. I think the market's going to go up to these highs I talked about. And then I predict a 90 or 95% crash. That's aggressive. But I did hear one analyst say, if measured in gold terms, I forget who it was, he said it would be 95%. So it's not like I'm out there alone. I think David Hunter is calling for an 80% crash after the highs. And I'm pretty much, he's not the only analyst I listen to, and he's not the reason that I'm calling for this blow off top. The reason I call it, it's something that I've anticipated and others have for decades, 2 or 3 decades. But its precedent is in the Weimar Republic time frame. And even though the currency collapsed eventually, and you'd have to use a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread, or you could be sitting at, for cocktail hour, and you're drinking your Chateau de Chateau-Lysée, and it costs you whatever in marks. By the time you ordered your next bottle, it could be worth 10 times, it could cost you 10 times that amount. Even though that was all going on, the stock market for a while hit extraordinary highs, and that's why I think it's going to happen. Speculators are going to be rewarded initially. Red pepperoni, Ola, Kryptonian. I'll tell you what it means. They're not going to let the little guy win. No, and that's why I think if we can all stick together, and by the way, I'm not getting paid for this. I haven't charged anybody. There's no fees or anything. But if in general we can stick together, I think this is the way we can put it to the man. To use a 60s and 70s expression. I think we can win here in Railtown. I don't think Railtown is at a risk of all of this destruction. Unfortunately, we've had to wait. Kryptonian, from my perspective, for the life of me, I cannot see why the company couldn't have accomplished the acquisition of AIP in July, or in August would have been a rough because it's holiday season, or in September. I cannot figure out what's taking so long, and I've shown that frustration. On the other hand, we're at the end of it now. So it's been painful, this wait. It's allowed the daily churning by short sellers where they can sell stock they don't own. And that's everybody from Ionic, that hedge fund. That's what they do. They sell stock they don't own. They use high frequency computers, and then they buy it back. And it's allowed. So there's a lot of that going on, I think, in Railtown whilst we're waiting. But there's also, as Neil pointed out, there's buying. There's some buying. That cowardly shorting, or whatever you want to call it, that opportunistic, that illegal. I think it's all illegal, but they do it. No one's going to go after them. No one's going to fix it. That goes on in the face of, I think, a cone of silence, or a limit on buying by the people who know the story. They can't do it. So we just have had to wait through that period. It's an opportunity to buy, And I think it's an opportunity for the little guy and girl to win. I think we're going to win in Railtown. And I think it's going to be a resounding success. But this waiting, on the one hand, has been just monotonous. On the other hand, it doesn't come without risk of the market changing. So my own assessment, Kryptonian, is the market hasn't changed for these AI companies first to market with revenue. But time wounds all heals. Wall Street, Wolfie, he has also pushed a string of loser stocks. Well, the question is, does he do that on purpose, or is he still believing an old paradigm about Wall Street? I don't know. I'm not going to comment. But I do believe all of the stocks, all of them, including Finger, and even including Energy Vault, although Energy Vault did a good run, I think on the whole, taken as a whole, it's really, you're not going to make money. The idea that you can buy a stock and it's going to squeeze and it's best just to not even listen to the story. Let somebody else do it. Let somebody else run it up. So as you know, Han used to come on my little, whatever it is here, daily. And initially I really believed, both because of price action, but also because I believed the argument, and I lived buy-ins. I lived it, buy-ins. So it made sense to me for, I don't know, a year and a half or whatever the time frame was. But early on in the first few months, I remember studying short squeezes and projecting what the numbers could be to the high side if there were short squeezes. But I really, particularly after the system stopped the squeezes, which I think were occurring in GTII and finger motion. And, Cindy Lou Who jumps on me that I'm blaming it on a dead guy. I'm not, because I think the system would have come up with other ways to kneecap the squeeze. They have a lot of power. They collude, they're corrupt, they don't care. They have the attorneys on their side, they have the regulators, they have the brokerage firms. So anyway, after GTI and Finger collapsed, and I won't go through the reasons, I think from then on, I've just totally, almost do not believe short squeezes will occur. Now there are setups where they can occur, but I won't bore you with that now. But that's not because brokerage firms are going to be buying in. It's for other reasons. So as long as anyone is presenting to you, here's the stock, it's out of Morgan Stanley, it's out of Goldman Sachs, and it's going to squeeze, and they're going to buy gold, and they're going to do something with their treasury, and they're going to do this and that. Just don't listen anymore. I mean, you might miss out on one that works, but you're going to miss out on a lot of other losses. I hope Railtown gives people real accounts, and I hope I convince people to make some adjustments to that account, but just hold that account for a year or two or three. Don't spend it. Don't trade it with these guys, because a lot of you are going to be millionaires. And if you're not a millionaire, you're going to have $200,000 or $300,000. That's real accounts. That's real equity. That's real money. I don't want you to see it as hot money. I don't want you to see easy come, easy go experiences either. So I think a lot of you, you're going to have a change in circumstance, and you're going to have a change in who you are, because in America, money, assets mean something, but I hope it doesn't change you personally. I hope you still go about life the same way, but I hope it gives everyone here some security and some power and options, choices. That's the thing. What scares people, I think, I know it's what scares me, is when you're down to your last shuck and nothing left to sell, you have no options other than freedom is just some prisoners walking through this world all alone. I mean, you can change your mindset, but with strong accounts, we as a group or individually will have optionality as the market goes up, crashes, and the world changes for the next 2 or 3 decades. And there will be opportunities, but it's all going to count. It's all going to be predicated on being in a position to take advantage of it. And it's not these shitty stocks, Wall Street Wolfie. It's not these shitty stocks. I mean, what's on my list here? It's not MTN, it's not Nixie, it's not GDC, although, I guess there's an argument there, but it's not G-Bucks, it's not, NRGV's done well, but I would say that was your trade. I wouldn't, why, what's it going to do now? This quantum biopharma, even Finger, you got to wait for the financing. I predicted Finger would get to 125, or it had that risk, and everyone jumped on my ass because I thought they're going to have to raise money. Well, it went to a low today at 121. I don't think it's out of the woods. They're going to do a financing. It's not going to be above market. So we'll see what happens. It could, we don't know. But this wait on Railtown, as you've seen, is very frustrating, but it's over. I think it's over today. It'll still have this, lag time, but the event is over today. I don't know if it'll take a week or 2 or 3 to filter through all the decision making. I hope it starts before the holidays, but we know those are all external to the fundamental story is now going to be told. And Railtown can go from 0 to 100 million in revenue in, projected revenue in 60 minutes, or whatever analogy you want to use. It can happen very quickly. So it's going to be exciting. Krypton, there's an exchange working and it's lit. All right, let me write that down and study it. LITX, lit exchange. Oh, I see. All right, I'll look that up, Kryptonian. That sounds very interesting. Deschamps is here. Hi, William. Purchased more today. Oh, that's great, Deschamps. Yeah, I'm glad you're taking advantage of it. I don't really have the resources to do so, but I'm so happy you are and other people are taking advantage. 8,275. That's a great goal. It's a great goal, Champ. D. Gordon throws in support. Thank you very much. I'm almost legend. Finalization Friday. That's right. Did I hear you correctly earlier that you're pushing the $1 mark and other price targets to the end of December? Well, no, but I'm not pushing them. I'm just saying let's see if I can rephrase it. I'm just acknowledging that there's a risk of slowness here. I think they're going to finalize this deal today, and I just read the Form 7 where they didn't change anything. So the deal was announced that it'd be finalized today, but that doesn't mean it's going to pass the paperwork muster on the regulatory side, nor does it mean the attorneys don't have other more important things to do than make sure this is done this weekend. So my guess is we're going to have to wait till Wednesday to see an acknowledgement of the closing. That's fine. We know it's coming. Then from there, I would imagine that to be released from, CAs and NDAs and other sort of holds, standstill agreements that may or may not have been signed. It may just be a regulatory perception. I think it could take another 1 or 2 or 3 days before buying comes in. So anyway, I think next week could be a bit of a holding pattern. Well, that takes us to Thanksgiving in the United States. So the 2 or 3 catalysts to buying would be, 1, does TELUS tell us anything more? 2, does I don't know what to call it, a campaign or a freeing up of Corey and Dr. Tom Corey and et cetera to get out and tell their story to investors, does that start to have an impact? 3, are there new revenue announcements? That where the pockets of where revenue announcements could come out, with or without revenue, would be the 5,000 companies in the AIP network using Conductor. It would be the transfer, second, or bullet point. It would also be the placement of 120 million in or more, 120 million plus of hosted cost that the 170 companies plus currently spend elsewhere, moving that hosting to the TELUS factory in Wissahickon, and then sharing that revenue with Railtown. It would be that Railtown is able to talk about their revenues from the 7 or 8 tie-ups they've already announced, but maybe they have additional new tie-ups outside of TELUS, outside of AIP to talk about. And that's about all those are 3 or 4 sources of revenue. That would be great if they could start announcing more and talking about it. And those are significant, I'm almost legend. I mean, it might be disappointing, but let's just use one number. If Railtown's AIP group currently spends $125 million a year on hosting, and it all goes to TELUS, and if I don't know what to use, if the revenue sharing is 15%, I don't know if that's high, that's 18,750,000. So call it 15 million, because I don't know if that's high. If 15 million in 100% revenue comes in, 100% margin, that's $1.25 million a month coming in without financing. And what's the multiple that goes on that? 15 million. If 15 million is projectable and it gets a multiple of 100x, it's 1.5 billion valuation. Divided by, and that doesn't need any issuance of shares. You don't need any issuance of shares, but I'll issue a little bit. Divided by 250 million. That's a $6 target. If you want to say that's in Canadian dollars, then in US dollars, that's a $4.50 target, simply by rehosting the 170 companies who Railtown will control after today, just moving them over from wherever they are now to TELUS. And I'll tell you what, that's a hell of a reason to have incentive to do that. That's one source of money. So do I think they need to book that this year? Probably not. They just got to get the analysts to see it. And so if research analysts see that, you could see buying in the stock by the first or second week in December. That's one source of revenue. Another source, like I said, is new business for Conductor from completely unrelated contracts to AIP, from completely unrelated contracts and customers to TELUS. But any new customers that Railtown's going to get, they're going to direct to TELUS because they get a kickback. So completely unrelated. Then the question is, how much business comes from the TELUS arrangement? Because TELUS has their own customers. I don't know. Is it small or big? I don't know. That's something to know. But I'm sure some segment of that is going to go across Conductor's platform. And then the customers that are cross-selling in the AIP network, they're going to use Conductor. So there's three sources, significant potential sources. The AIP customers' use of Conductor, the TELUS customers' use of Conductor, and completely unrelated. They've been out there pitching woo, I hope, for 10 months. Completely. So there's three sources of revenue for Conductor we have yet to hear about. If we don't hear about it, hopefully the analysts will hear about it, and it'll be in the analyst projections for 2026, 2027, and 2028. I don't think the analysts are going to sit on their reports. I think there's going to be a race to get those reports out, because that's how they get on the analyst all-star team. That's how they get bonuses. That's how they get credit for being right. So I would say analyst reports will start coming out in Canada, maybe Thanksgiving week, but let's say the first week of December. Well, if you've got one or two or three or 4 or 5 or 6, I don't know how many. But if you get a handful of analyst reports coming out, and they come from some names, and they have institutions listening to them, and they have retail sales forces, and they're all saying about the same thing, I think the stock could be $3 or $4 Canadian in December. If you say $3 Canadian and you translate that to US, that's 225. Yeah, that's what I think now. I think December, the most likely case is you're looking at $2 US plus or minus 25 cents. Now that's not as exciting as my target was of, I'll look it up so I'm not guessing. You know, I had a middle of December target of 425. I had the end of the year target of 350. Just show you 350. But it's also not as high as some of my projections were if they had closed this deal 3 months ago or 2 months ago. But so what I'm saying, I'm almost legend, is I'm not changing those projections. I still think the stock goes to 5, 10, 20, 25, and then ultimately to $50 or higher. But I am adjusting this stair-step section, this slowpoke section. The part that's going to be the most difficult is to get it from $1 to $5. The easy part is going to get it from $5 or $6 to 10. That's going to be the easy part. Is these first baby steps, stutter steps, step forward, you know, toddle backwards. But I'm acknowledging I'm almost legend, even though I don't want to. I'm acknowledging that the delay, let's just call it a paperwork delay, of finalizing the AIP transaction has a cost. And that cost is for me anyway, the anticipated price for November and December is lower than I once thought. And it moves out the higher numbers to January, February. But let me be clear, I'm almost legend. I do not think that, you know, assuming everything else is copacetic, I don't think that moves out the, as I've shown in my charts, this hockey stick move I've shown over and over again in valuation. Anyway, I don't have to show it again. This movement up in the value of the company, I think, is going into this algorithmic phase, this hockey stick part of the move. And this initial stutter step part might get delayed a bit, and it's frustrating. But once the stock gets to $5, $6, $7, $8, $10, $12, I think you're going to see revenues, the projections of revenues accelerate, and I think you're going to see the stock price accelerate. I think it's going to be in every portfolio of AI institutions, retirement accounts. I think it's going to have a buzz. That's still how I see it. I'm almost legend. I'm not negative. I'm worn out. I'm bored waiting, and I'm discouraged by this little delay because I didn't expect it. But I'm not sure it's understandable. I'm not sure it's understandable, but we can comprehend it and we can acknowledge that it's happening. And it doesn't change the fundamental story of the company. The company is not going to have to issue a whole lot of stock to dilute itself. So the shorts, if they're thinking that, they're not going to be able to cover. The company doesn't have to take any toxic financing. They're not in an emergency to go out and book a financing that's going to destroy the market cap of the company, but keep the CEO in dyed hair and first class flights and be able to go out with British accent, this is my fight type crap. So the delay's not going to be disastrous to the company. It's just as frustrating as it can be, as I think you've seen me express, and maybe sometimes express in very unfair ways. But it's going to end. I'm almost legend. And I do not think Railtown stock price is going to break $1 next week, but it could be up next week. I don't think it'll break $1. The following week, that's our Thanksgiving week, I think the stock will break $1 to the upside. Yeah, that's no. Yeah, that's Thanksgiving week. So I think the stock will go over $1 Thanksgiving week. I'll say that in the first week of December, it won't do much more. It could, but I won't. I'll just say $1, $1.50. But the second and third week of December, I think the research will come out, and you have a good chance of seeing that stock break $2 and settle in 25 cents either side of $2. I'm not changing any of these projections because they were in pencil. And if I start changing it, you'll never know if I changed it again. So you can hang me on those. On the other hand, this could still happen. These numbers could still happen. It depends on who publishes the research, who follows the research, and which institutions, mutual funds, managers, retail are trying to get a jump on next year. So let me read your question if I answered it. You're pushing the $1 mark to the end of December. Now, I think $1 will happen Thanksgiving week. And I think to give myself a little buffer, maybe what I'll say is the stock will hit $1 to $1.50 in the last week of November and the first week of December. And then I think in the second and third week of December, the stock will break $2. It could go a lot higher, but I'll just say it'll break $2. Let's say it'll go to $2.50, and it might settle in around $2, give or take 25 cents. What does it do for the last week of December? I don't know how to call that. I think Railtown has a chance in January of finishing January in the over $5 range, and in the February, March range. I think you could see it go $5 in January, maybe $10 in February, and believe it or not, you could see $12.50 to $15 in March. But a lot of things have to lay correctly. The revenues have to be projected either by analysts or by the company. The company has to get out and tell its story. Institutions have to believe it. Revenue has to start flowing. Contracts have to start coming in. I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to happen. I think it's all been delayed by paperwork, let me call it that, on AIP. I cannot understand why the company would allow for that delay to occur, but we're nearly finished with it. Okay, Railtown closed at 41 cents on 96,540 shares. Last trade, 5,000 shares at 41 cents. It looks like Finger is, well, last trade on Finger is $1.29. This Genius, I think, is still closed. Let me see. Yeah, it's still halted. I don't know what's going on there. QNTM 737, Energy Vault 309, GDC 464, G-Bucks 12 cents. 12 cents. And let's see if we're at war. I hope not. I hope not. I don't know who the Netflix coach is, but he was just shot dead. No, we're not at war, it looks like. Good. All right. I'm probably going to end it. I'll answer these questions. Probably end it here shortly because I haven't eaten all day. I had a bowl of cereal in the morning. That's it. Patricia C179. Finger's been unfortunate. I still hope for the squeeze. Been buying Railtown because I believe in the move too. Thank you, Patricia. Finger's not going to squeeze. It's getting down to a price where I think there's going to be a financing. I doubt, I could be wrong. I doubt that it will be at $1.30. Could be. It's low enough, and I think somebody's been selling stock that maybe they'd be happy to cross their cash for stock they don't own, that they've been selling at $1.30. But I don't think so. I think there's a real risk that there'll be a financing under the market, even though it says at the market. But at the market is a movable target. So it's kind of scary to say, Patricia, but they might finance something at $1 or under $1, which just brings in all the nightmare scenarios of we're going to delist you and all that crap. But hopefully not. Hopefully they can get the financing done here above $1. But there's one coming. There's one coming. And I would say that Finger may have, Patricia. I would be too afraid to trade it between now and the end of the year or before the financing. But tax loss selling comes in sometimes at the end of November. Other times it comes in the last couple of weeks of December, and many times it's both. But I would think Finger, whatever the low is, if there's a low after a financing and after tax loss selling, I think Finger could set up as a classic January tax, I forgot what they used to call those, tax loss sale, the January effect. But I haven't seen the January effect in a long, long time, but it could be. So you could see some sort of low in finger in December. It could be could be anywhere from the end of November to the end of December. And that low, it'll probably carry over into the first week of January. But by the end of January, you could see the stock up 100, 200% in a January effect move. So you might have a trade that you can do in finger, but I wouldn't try to trade finger from now to the end of the year. And Patricia, even though you missed out on selling finger at 5 or 6 or 4 or 3, I can't tell you personally what to do, but if I were in your shoes, my strategy would be I would sell finger Monday morning. Well, make sure you know where Railtown's selling first. But if Railtown's still in these ranges, I would sell finger for a loss. This is what I would do. I can't tell you what you would do. I would sell finger for a loss, buy Railtown, and then be prepared in the last week of December, whatever the Railtown I got. My guess is Railtown at 44 cents could triple or could quadruple or quintuple your money from here. So if you get to the end of December, I would hang on to Railtown. But if you got to the end of December and you wanted to buy back your finger, this is the strategy I would use, hoping it works. I would then sell a little bit of my Railtown or put up new money and buy finger back 31 days from Monday. I don't think you're going to pay a whole lot more than it is now. You might get it cheaper. So I would have established my tax loss, which I can use should I ever decide to take a gain somewhere. And you'll still be in finger, but I think Railtown is going to triple from here at a minimum by the end of the year, and it's very likely to quadruple or better by the end of the year, depending on the research and depending when. Look, all you need is Mavericks. All you need is one big buyer in Railtown, and it could be a $3, $4, $5 stock before the end of the year. I'm not turning negative on the upside by the end of the year. I'm just cautioning that this delay I'm not going to blame anybody, with the paperwork, has an effect potentially. That's all I'm saying. Jack Hamilton, just catching up. Hope you have a good weekend, William, and the entire RT group. No change in the fundamental story. No workies. I agree. Pete the Greek, Opa. Pete the Greek. Add 4. Stefan. That's awesome, Pete. That's a good position. If I'm right, of course. Patricia, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. It's unfortunate learning Taryn Peaser and Ham are friends. Well, Taryn, whatever his name is, Kaiser Solse, you should know Patricia. He made a fortune destroying stocks, and best of my information, in my judgment. I think he made something in the range of hundreds of millions of dollars on the bad side of this kind of transaction. I heard a number that was as high as $400 or $500 million, being someone who destroyed stocks for a living. I heard that. I don't know it for sure, so it's my opinion. I can't prove it to you, but he's not on your side, this Kaiser Sose. And he has the money to lose. It's not going to interrupt his life. So I don't know what to believe after these years. I buy more here and go 50-50. I would, Patricia, I'd at least go 50-50, but Finger's not going to squeeze. And I like their story. I like Martin Shen. I like their steady as their go approach, but Finger is flirting with $1 and lower. So I think it's a flip of a coin that they get this financing done under $1 and they have to do a reverse split. I hope not. I'm not trying to talk ill of it. You just got to see what's there. But Patricia, like I say, if it were me, I'd go 100% Railtown and then come back to Finger later, even though it's already down. But that's what I would do. I know that means that you might miss out on a squeeze on Finger, but believe it or not, Railtown has the potential for squeezing too, if that's what you're after. I don't want Railtown to squeeze because I want this money to be, you're in it, you hold it, and it changes your situation. I don't want people turning it into hot money, but we have to also acknowledge that potential that Railtown could have this explosive upside. Well, we'll cross that bridge. Patricia, thank you, William. Hope you have a good, same to you, Patricia. Hey, Donna. Hey, Jack, and I'm almost lashing. Too bad it dragged in the winter holidays. I think it's going to be after the holidays before we see movement. In January, I have 8,000 Roth contribution. Yeah, there's a silver side to it. You're exactly right, Donna. You're exactly right. And you might be right that it slides to January. And I guess that's kind of what I'm not saying it will slide to January, but I'm not going to argue vociferously with you about that because I'm worn out. And I have a hard time understanding why it got to this point, but I guess I'm saying that the big part of the move that I've been anticipating is going to January. I think the stock will be a buy at $1. I think it'll be buy at $2, buy at $3, you know. Jack Hamilton, good evening to you, Donna. And Stefan got another. Wow. That's great, Pete. That's exciting. And Jason Harvest and William Cursor AI just raised $2.3 billion on a $9.3 billion, 299 billion, 29.9. I'm a little confused. Let me look it up. Cursor AI. Cursor AI. You know what that shows, Jason, is money is still flowing. Cursor AI. The AI coding startup favored by tech CEOs is now worth 29.3 billion. So it's 29.3 billion. Wow. Raises 2.3 billion at 29.3. 4 MIT dropouts in their 20s are now billionaires. Why didn't I do that? I should have gone to MIT. No, it's fine. I don't mind the mistake, Jason. I couldn't figure it out. I wonder how much revenue they do. I can't go into here, Crunchbase maybe I can go into. The headline is Cursor's 2.3 billion financing reminds us coding automation is still ultra hot. And by the way, that's what Railtown does. It's one of the things Railtown does. Coding automation platform Cursor announced today that it has raised 2.3 billion in Series D funding. See, you can get into Railtown. You can't get into Series D. And I think Railtown's priced at a seed or pre-seed level. So you're right, 23.9 billion post-money valuation. The valuation is more than 3 times higher than what Cursor parent company AnySphere secured just 6 months ago. This is an indication that investors see both lightning fast growth and enormous potential for more to come for startups in the coding automation space. Headquarters in San Francisco has a team of 300 people, touts ambitious plans to extend, and they say they have $1 billion in annualized revenue. So they're trading at 29 times annualized revenue. So if Railtown got to 100 million in revenue, I'm too tired to figure it. I'm just going to use it as a target. 100 million times 29, that'd be 2.9 billion divided. They could do that without issuing any shares. I left that out of the revenue model, by the way. I left that completely out. They also can roll up revenue next year. I left that completely out, but let's leave it out for now. So I'll say 250 million shares. Remember, that's 400 million in revenue they can go after. That's $11 target on the stock. Guys, Railtown is cheap, cheap, cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap. And thank you, Jason. That shows that money is still flowing like wine. Down in Dixieland. All right, I'm going to sign out. I'm completely starving and knackered, as they say. So I'm glad we're not at war. I wish each of you peace. I'll probably come on tomorrow, just after I digest this Cursor AI that motivates me. But so I wish you peace tonight. I'm sure I'll be on tomorrow. So we'll leave the rest of the weekend for that. And I thank you all for tuning in. And I'm Almost Legend. I'm not changing my upsides. I'm not changing my excitement. I'm just acknowledging that the buying that I counted on coming in there's going to be a lag after the AIP. AIP may not be filed till next week. If you account for that lag and then you have holidays, it just gets tricky. But I still think you can see over $1 by Thanksgiving, over $2 by the second week of December, and it could be higher by the end of the year. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Steve, good night, and ciao.